So funny. It's like whatever. It's weird. Hey, Dawn. Hello.
Hi.
Love it all over you. Look at all your hearts.
I know. I have to go get my earplugs. Hold on. Right
Nope.
now.
Okay.
Are you live? No.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
I just
No.
posted it on Facebook and
What'd you post?
Instagram. So we'll see if anybody shows up. I think
Oh,
this is
look at you.
yeah, I love it.
Look at you. All right. So, I haven't got to Evergreen yet. So tell me what
Okay.
we're talking about, baby, or Evernote.
Evernote, we are talking about, it's all about perspective. It's interesting how everybody's voices are being heard, and yet sometimes they don't realize they're being a total dick about it. You know?
Well, okay, you have to give me some backstory on that one, friend.
Yeah, dude, it's been rough. Okay, I went to the island to visit my friend, the client that I gave the 8 sessions for free, and she paid me all of $50, and she has no generosity or bone in her body. And I had a pain crisis. She wanted to go kayaking. And I said, I think we should do paddleboarding because I know I can handle it and I can only do an hour, not 2. And then I gave in. I was like, okay, let's go kayaking. I wanted to go in early. She said, no, let's keep going. So we kept going. Yeah, 20 minutes after I got out of the boat, my pain spiked. I was like a 9 out of 10. And she's a word wizard and was, oh, fuck, why isn't it on here? Everything I wrote isn't on here.
Okay, good. Well, not good, but I was like, I can't find it again. I looked in all of the
Again.
shared. I looked in the shared with me. I looked in notebooks. I looked in all the notes. I looked in all the places.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to come off of here because I know it's on my phone. So I'm going to take a screenshot and send it to you. Can I do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'll sign out of here and I'll be back in a jiff.
Okie dokie. Hi, plant. I don't know if I like the background. Hello, hello. Did you send it to me?
I sent it via Messenger. So I'm looking at what I sent to you too. So this is helpful. The unity consciousness versus separation consciousness. Conflict, everything is perspective and Brené Brown's quote. And then discernment, sorry, that cut off a little, the spiritual path and trauma energy.
Cool. All right. Well, why don't we, how
And
do
we'll
you,
still like stop each one, right? Like we're going to chat between each one or not? Or do you want to just roll in and do it all?
we
Or?
could just roll in, just do it all. And maybe with all of these, I was thinking that if we talk about the, like, you know, I know we've mentioned a few times and we've mentioned in our videos a couple times, like the process of it because it sucks. You know, like when we actually are in the work, people
Yeah.
say, oh, just, you know, meditate every day and things will be great. And then like meditate and then all the crap comes up and then you're in it for a while and you're like, this fucking sucks. Like
Yeah.
no one really talks about the middle. So
Yeah.
maybe we've talked about before, maybe talk about the middle, but then also put a slant on it too, like why we believe where we're going, like the future of the world and
I
our place
agree.
in it, and like perspective, like, okay, through the muck, this is kind of a holding period, really getting all of the relationships and everything kind of unearthed to redo our structure. But why are we into energy work, into this, and make it futuristic, like hopeful and like woo or whatever, but
I
make
love
it
that.
more like all of these things and bring more of our the
Reality.
gritty to then to the positive,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean,
You
other
know,
than talk about.
sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, we've been using, examples of clients and things, and it's like, but this happened to me personally, right? It's about that perspective thing. I have so many examples of perspective. And so I'll just pick one, and then we can talk about the fact that we are all one and that we have to respect another person's perspective, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and how that kind of mirrors our own, um, mirrors mirrors and or highlights where we want to grow,
Right, right.
whether it's obvious or not, but then really more so much not the past or what happened or that, but
Right.
more like, okay, when you're in the work, what does that really mean? Like when you get
Yeah,
up in the day
yeah,
and you don't really want to meditate, or you're having a misunderstanding with friends, or you want
yeah,
different
the
things.
practicality. Yeah, I
Yeah, so
love
talk
that.
about the in it, and then the,
And the challenges, and that it's like a roller coaster every minute of every day. Things come
yeah,
up. Yeah.
and the
Yesterday I
ultimate.
had to deal with bed bugs. That was really fun.
Oh, yeah. See?
Oh, yeah.
And as you're in it, you can be in a more heightened state, but you still are in the human existence. So even gurus and people, it's like you can
We
live
all,
philosophies, but to live them, to merge them with life, it looks differently than,
yeah,
just say an affirmation or have a positive outlook. That doesn't really help. Not that it
yeah,
hurts, but
yeah. Well, and it's like the energy work. You have to be willing to receive it. And you
hmm
have to do the things. You have to, I think you have to apologize. I think you have to forgive. You have to forgive yourself and the other person. And you have to realize that their perspective, well, that your perspective isn't the only one.
hmm
And
and
that
that.
theirs isn't wrong because it's not yours.
Yeah, and there somewhere in that divide is the healing and the growth and the
Yes,
movement.
for all of us,
Yes, universally. All right, so
universally.
let's try to get me on. So live on YouTube. All right, so let's see if I can do this.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
YouTube, Dawn and Donna. There we are. Unable. Unable. Why not? Public. Go live. Come on. It's thinking. Come on.
Fingers crossed. Well, and maybe we just pull tips from all of these things as our conversation goes. And do we want to do it for just a 20-minute live?
Yeah, well, we'll just see how long let's just try to,
Okay.
confirm your choices. See, edit.
Because I really like the trauma energy and talking about the ancestral trauma in our cells and how we all have that, and that, like, I watched this video of this beautiful Black woman today who was on MSNBC, and she's like, it has been 400 years ever since we got here. We have not been valued, cared, or respected. And it's just like, wow, yeah, that's ancestral. So there's a little bit of anger going on. So, and isn't that allowed? You know?
Right. Okay, what? Ask Donna, you are signing in. Got it. Okay, allow. Allow. Come on, Google.
Come on, Google.
Allow. Your Zoom meeting. Okay, going live. Here, hopefully all that's not going on YouTube as it's, you know how sometimes it delays?
Yeah.
Have you ever had that with like when you go live on Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen it happen to other people. I've been pretty lucky so far. So, come on, angels, guides, ascended masters, help us out with the technology. Let's tell
Let's
Google to
do
hit the
it.
right button. Let's get going. We're good to go. We are ready. We are fired up. We have the words. We got the things.
We have
We got
all of
shit to
it.
say. We got shit to say. We look good. Come on now.
Come on now.
Come on now.
Oh, I'm gonna be so bummed. Why won't it? So this is
Can
our
I go get
YouTube
lipstick and be right back?
Yes, please do.
Okay, babe.
And it has live on YouTube. Hold on, Dawn. Now I'm here. Now let me do this.
And
This.
sometimes people say it just doesn't work, you know?
It might. We're on live somewhere. We're
We're
on,
on live somewhere. Excellent.
yes, we're on live right now on
Oh,
our
yes, we
YouTube
are.
channel. So,
I
hi
see that.
everyone. We have a moment of technical stuff and we'll get started. So, let me see if I could see our home. How funny. Let's see. It says we're live.
It does say we're live. It says
And
it's recording and we're live, so.
yeah, and I'm on our YouTube. Let's see. Okie dokie. Well, I don't see us
Welcome.
on the YouTube, but okay.
Oh,
Well, like I'm
okay.
on our YouTube and I'm not like seeing ourselves, but that
Oh,
doesn't mean that it's not happening.
not happening.
So, all right. So we'll just do this as it is.
Yeah, we'll just do this.
Hi, everyone. So welcome to our first YouTube live. So a little technical difficulties. My name is Donna, and this is Dawn. I'm not sure what side of the screen this
Me
way, because
neither.
I always go this way. So today we have quite a few like topics. We've been inspired to talk about perspective and ancestral trauma, and kind of all of the things that we have been talking to you about, but from a perspective also as a very personal journey. I know for me, and I'll speak for Dawn a little bit, but and she'll tell her own story. But I know, like, I look at people, or I look at quotes, or I look at like successful people or people that have gone through a transition, and they're like, oh, they have these major success stories where it's like they were homeless and poor, and then they found their thing, and they found God, and they found their divinity or their dharma, whatever you want to say, and then like they're happy and they're teaching these things. But that's true, but no one really talks about all of the in between stuff. um, there is a lot that maybe it happens instantly for some people, but I haven't really met the instant people. Maybe you could become
Maybe the Dalai
instantly.
Lama. The
Yeah,
Dalai Lama, maybe that's about it. That's the only
yeah.
person I can think of. Yeah.
There's some instant enlightenment, but that doesn't mean that you still don't deal with the human things of it.
Mm.
And just because you realize, self-actualize, are aware, raise your consciousness, it doesn't take away from the time that you spend in healing, pain, confusion energy. Like, I see it, and Donna and I kind of talked about it, this ebb and flow, but life is not linear. It's not like you like have these great insights and awarenesses and then poof, everything in your life is colored by that instantly. It's more like looking at areas. For me, it's looking at areas and seeing where they are, like my perspective has changed, and where there still needs work to be done.
Yeah.
And I think in the climate, like, so Dawn's in Canada and I'm in the US. So we have very different political climates. Not that Canada and the world doesn't also know about, they don't have their own sort of racial, political, socioeconomic strife. But
Mm.
in America, our elections are coming up, and it seems to be much more of a hot spot here than in other countries right now, or it's just how I get the news delivered to me. So we wanted to talk about, like, I feel America, the world really, with COVID, and the US is going through this kind of their own dark night of the soul situation, where everyone knows these things have
Mm.
going on, but they haven't been able to find the solution that is broad enough so everyone that are these in the America feels like they're heard, supported, and validated. And as a human, I know from my own experience, that's one of the main things that is always what I go back to. Is I first wanted to be validated, heard, and seen from parents and teachers. And then I wanted, for my career and I was a dancer, I wanted to know that I was accepted and validated, even if I had very harsh criticisms after and I didn't believe it, I still was seeking that. So until
Mhm.
I started to really hear and see and validate myself, then my wounds kind of were able to kind of dry up and on that global level. So for me, that was a really deep one. And that has been kind of the common thread through any of my awareness states. Because once I like really was like in meditation, I was like, I'm meditating for an hour a day. I'm feeling good. I'm thinking all the thoughts. I have this like connection with God. It still wasn't, I was still looking at my life through the lens of it's not all perfect. And why isn't my pain taken away? Why isn't my communication happening with my husband? Like, why is there still fights? I kind of felt like there was going to be this magic thing of like,
Right, right.
I'm like in a different level. I'm going to be able to respond and receive. And,
Yes,
it's all going to be like good. There's no problems.
yes.
Well, that's not
Not
true.
true.
Not true at all.
Not true. No,
And
we use
that's,
that term, sorry.
no, go
We
ahead.
use, we use that term ascension. ascension, like we're all going to live in this nirvana and this term new world and what that looks like. And it's like, the reality is we all have our own ancestral trauma, no matter what the color of our skin, no matter what our experience. We are all here having a human experience, and human experiences are not easy. They're not easy in the least. And so this is why it's the awakening and the knowledge, and there's so much knowledge available. And we don't know what's the truth. We don't know what's the fact. We don't know if we're being played. We don't know anything. But how I interpret it is based on my ancestral trauma, and how somebody else interprets it is based on their ancestral trauma. And it really is all about perspective. And what if I don't like your perspective? Well, that's too damn bad, isn't it? I mean, then I have to get over that, don't I? Like, I can respect and love you from afar, maybe, and we don't have to be friends, but I can respect your pathway and your life and your experiences and how you view things. It is not my job, A, to convince you of how I think, and B, to make you wrong for how you think. We are all here, and that the like always, the differences are a lot less than we think they are, no matter what the topic. We are all here together. And hasn't COVID shown us that we are all one? And when you're unkind to somebody else, you're literally being unkind to yourself. And those miserable people haven't healed their wounds, haven't done the work, haven't taken any sense of self-responsibility. I find myself severely challenged with people that haven't expanded, that are so contracted and in fear and pushing their agenda. And it's like, well, I don't have to receive that. That's not my agenda. I need you to respect my boundaries and what my agenda is. So it's that validation, that understanding, the whole thing. Isn't that what the human experience is? Isn't it about seeking, many of us are born into families that don't necessarily become our soul family, right? It's about finding our soul family where we get that validation and acceptance. And it's about negotiating those relationships that, yeah, we're related, but do I believe or trust you? Probably, like, a lot of times, not so much, right? And it's like, so you have to work within your own boundaries to create, maybe that once a year Christmas dinner thing, and just shut it down and be okay with, what their belief systems are, their limitations, and where they've come from, and why they think the way they do. There's difference in generations. There are differences in the cultures. There's differences in our genders. There's differences in everything. And isn't that the beauty? Isn't that the beauty of Earth and our universe and our experience, our earthly, worldly, human experience, is that everything and everybody is different. If we were all the same, how boring would that be? They would call that robot land. I mean,
it would not be colorful or growthful. And I want to expound on and go deeper into the boundaries and the perspectives. Because first, it's easy, it's easy to say that, for me, and I'm talking for me, that I respect someone's perspective and I understand them, because on one level I do. But if it's closer to home, to like a good friend or my husband, and it's on an issue where we need some cooperation in order to move forward or like get something done, then that's where the two things. If where it doesn't become real for me unless we talk and work it out. If I respect, like, okay, he does have a different perspective or she has a different perspective, so I respect that. But if it's too close to home to like what my personal wants and needs or whatever I think needs to happen, then it could either be flippant and like, oh yeah, I'll respect you. It's still not right. There's a putting down, like,
Right.
yeah, I get it. You're not whatever. You haven't done the work, or so I've had to work so I don't I'm not condescending in that, like, because I wanted to be well, I didn't just want to be, but I was trying to look from a different their perspective as well, but I would still have a slant on it, especially if it's something I really wanted my agenda to be pushed forward and I wanted to happen my way. I might kind of like put him down a little bit. Oh yeah, you don't know, and I know better, so I'll give in. And so in the spiritual realm, I've come across that a ton. I don't know if you have, but
Oh
I
yeah.
was I was in a community for a long time where that was kind of like, it was like, yeah, come and work on yourself and share. But if you shared anything, then there was a lot of opinions. Why do you do this? I can't believe you're doing it again. Blah blah blah. And then you're like, and then you try to say so. Oh, you're in your ego. Oh, this. So
Oh gosh.
so there gets to be a smidge self righteousness, and when you're
Mm,
in this
mm.
work, and it's a cautionary tale, I think I'm just saying, is just to be aware of when you're really respecting someone else's perspective. And I've done that. And I've also done it where I'm like, oh, they're just doing their thing again. Oh, they haven't, I'm putting them down in their spiritual world. So that's, I think, the big caution when there's collective growth, and you use the term of ascension. Um, that can get a little bit hoity-toity on that unless you really do the work. Like, you can
Yeah.
bypass and say you and spout um, theories and beliefs and truths that are genuine, but if you don't really live them, then you're bypassing your own growth. And
Mm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
where I was thinking the boundaries. So I used to not, like, I have a hard time with boundaries because
Mm.
I don't see them in boundaries. I remember when I was in getting my master's, and it was a movement oriented in psychology, so it was both. And she became my really good friend. Her whole thing was about boundaries. She needed strict boundaries, and like she would talk about, is my boundary here and my arm and my fingertips. And I just am like, I don't know, maybe I probably have
Flexible, more flexible.
well, flexible, but I never really thought of having boundaries or not having boundaries. I was like, huh? Like, why is it so rigid? Like, just whatever. Like,
Right.
it's, I'm much more situational.
Same.
So but there's a lot of people that are not situational. So it took me a while to kind of understand that. And my boundary became that if I am best when I let everything in and go through me. If I really have strong
Mm.
no's to me, that's where my system kind of gets like bogged down. Like, other people need it to
Okay.
be very like, this is my
Yeah.
boundary, and that's,
Yeah.
you could come here and that's it. I'm more, when I try, because I've tried that out, I was like, oh well, maybe I should have boundaries. I don't have boundaries. Why don't I have boundaries? Blah blah blah. And then that didn't work for me, because, and that, I think, is something, especially during COVID, I think we're coming down to this 2020 year. Is it feels like everything, bones, structures, everything's kind of being crumbled and to be back
Everything.
up, everything across the board,
Everything across
everything.
the board.
So how am I crumbling? And if I'm resisting, there's a great book. I'm sure you know, I forget his name, but it's about falling to pieces without falling apart. And
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's an old book, like 20 years ago.
Okay.
But
I'm sure it's on my to read list that's never getting
yeah,
to, but yeah.
yeah. It's kind of before the Eckhart Tolle and all that stuff.
Yes,
It's like a
yes,
pre to that.
yes.
And I think the language is a little more lofty because it's like, huh? But but really, like, how do I fall apart, and what are these new boundaries, if any? And because I think boundaries could be somewhat limiting to yourself. It kind of depends
Mm-hmm.
on where you have your boundaries. Like, why
Well,
are
I
you?
find, well, I watched some Brene Brown last night, right? And she breaks down to the simplicities, right? And she says boundaries are what's okay and what's not okay. So, you know, I come from a long line of OCDers where with white towels. Well, that's not okay in my house. And I don't believe in perfection. I think perfection is an illusion, and seeking that out is kind of a waste of energy. And it's interesting because, I've always felt undervalued in my within my family unit of 3 women, where the 2 of them have very strict OCDs and I don't have that. So I'm really not allowed in the kitchen to help for things because they got a system, and isn't that okay? I mean, whatever. I can sit on the couch and do nothing. I mean, it doesn't kill me either, right? So if that's how they need it to be, this sense of having to be an island. And so Brene Brown also said that the most compassionate people are the most boundaried. Now, boundaried also has to come with kindness, because I know people with boundaries that frankly just come across like dicks. Right? Like, if you are unkind to a waitress because you didn't get your water 2 minutes ago and that has ruined your entire dinner, I just think, well, you're being a dick. Have you ever been a waitress? Most likely not, right? So I really think that compassion is about fully walking a mile in that person's shoes, and that we're not all perfect. And so, you know, I I tout the work. I am living my best life. But am I losing it some days? Am I crying a lot lately? Absolutely, right? Do I get upset when other people don't see or validate my experience? I had a pain crisis the other day with a friend that wasn't quite holding the space for me, and I lost it. I lost it. And I apologized quickly after, and her apology was a little latent, let's say. And so that was a real challenge for me. And it's like, you know, being a highly sensitive person, and, she's a highly sensitive person, but why don't you lead with the love and with the caring and the empathy in the moment? I recognized that I was an asshole when I yelled, even though my pain was a 9 out of 10. So, that term on my last nerve is probably from somebody experiencing severe pain. That literally is their last nerve. And you just hit it. So, and that's not that's a physiological, again, um that is my physiological trauma. I have physiological pain, and pain, expresses itself differently. And so was it all physiological, or was it the stress of that emotional of not being seen and understood and respected, and having somebody else say, well, I have these needs, I need you to do this. And it's just like, uh, I'm in a 9 out of 10 in pain. I can't do anything for anybody right this second, but shut down all stimuli and reset my nervous system, right? And when that wasn't received with a compassion and an empathy, that made me more upset, which adds to the pain. So, I just think that this is the growing pains of the collective right now, is that we are all, the messages are to express ourselves very clearly, to build and have clear boundaries. And, you know, some people are expressing their trauma in negative ways. I mean, I live downtown Vancouver, you live in LA. The crackheads are on force. And it, like, those that were bad before are even worse now. Like, they're just not managing well. And I feel like those that were doing well before are doing even better. It's like the extremes are 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 bigger. They're just bigger. They're amplified. They're all the things. And even those of us doing well have to work really hard to maintain a level of peace and stability. So it's just fascinating. And it's about respect. It's really about respect first and leading with love. I mean, if you lead with love, you can't go wrong. And I think people are forgetting that. They're wanting their voices heard. They want things fixed. They want it yesterday. Well, is that realistic? I mean, there has to be some flexibility. And there are, like all things, the right places, the right people, the right time to have your voice heard. So when I was not being respected in my pain crisis, I just disengaged completely and shut down, and then tried to gently re-establish. And it was slow coming. It was slow coming, but that was her timeline, not mine. So, you know, that's okay.
I think it is important, like, so it's such a great example of so many things because I know when I am, trigger's kind of overused, but like you had whatever the situation was, it ended up in you being in severe pain and then you reacting from that place. And I know when I have done things where maybe I'm not listening to myself, or maybe I'm thinking it'll be okay, or, because I get chronic pain stuff like migraines or whatever.
Yes.
And, or I don't see the signs. A lot of it is I don't see the signs about what's going to happen until it happens. Like, I don't really have, my migraines are not a trigger from one thing. I've done all these tests.
Yeah.
So, but over the years, I kind of like, okay, if I haven't eaten enough and no water, that's an extra like
That's very
contributing
true.
factor. But
Hangry doesn't help. Yeah.
yeah, but it's more subtle. It's like it happens like in this very subtle way. So whatever you were doing and then you got to pain, maybe it was just something like a misstep, or it was something
So
stress,
that's what's fascinating, is that it goes from 0 to 9 in a, like, or 3. My baseline is 3 to 9 without, like, this is the problem. I physically can do everything, but I pay the price later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been pushing my body a lot. I'm doing this little move all on my own, and I have bruises all over my body, and I obviously pushed it too hard with 2 hours of fun in a kayak. And yeah, maybe hydration was a thing, food was a thing, and you're right. It all culminated. So
Yeah, and sometimes I think things need to come out of us. Like our body is definitely, for me, I think the body is the bridge between the earth and the heavens or whatever, but also it's like your ear to the universe too, because I think the body responds to things faster because we have this reptilian brain and we're just kind of wired to really be aware of our environment, and our brain can come in and change all that for us. So I know for me, when I have had things like that happen where I'm like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, I could do a little. And then I just like shut down, like in pain or whatever. I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then my emotion of anger or frustration because of the pain and the situation is like, I say things I don't like, or I'm too harsh. And I think it's just, I used to not think this, but because it's difficult to be in. But I was like, okay, well, what is the opportunity? Is it a mirror of what I'm feeling? And this is like kind of this little, whatever that little wound needs to feed, and this was the right opportunity? Or am I not really taking care of myself? We talked about boundaries early. What are my healthy boundaries for me? And how do I, if it's different from someone else's needs, you said there was different timelines. But like, I'm trying to think, like, if I am on this timeline and my friend's on this one, and I want to have fun and I want to do my thing, and we're at different timelines, how do I get my needs met and uh, still be in cooperation or in friendship or whatever without actually having to put myself in a place where I might have to, be in pain or get a migraine or, like
Mhm.
whatever. So two things. I think
Mhm.
relationships are great for growth because it's either a mirror of what's going on within me, or it ignites something like, oh, maybe I need to do something with this. Maybe I need to loosen my boundaries. Maybe I need to constrict them. The example I have with my really, when I got really sick, is I have this, I kind of know like how much I could push myself. Um, Doing extreme sports and dancing all the times. And I was working with someone that she didn't believe in like resting. If you're
Mm.
sick, she always thought it was your ego and it was BS. And you
Oh,
couldn't
wow.
do like, it was just, if you're in pain, it must be something else. And like,
Oh, wow.
it was a little too much. So to not have to deal with that end of it, I just did stuff even if I knew it wasn't good for me. I would stay up late, I'd get up early, I would get enough
Right.
sleep, and I knew that's kind of one of my things. And eventually I ended up not listening to myself so much that my body just, when
Down.
bronchitis was around me, it went into my lower lung lobe and I got viral pneumonia, it turned into, because I ignored it. And I wasn't really feeling comfortable that I could take days off or be sick because I got a lot of flack.
Right.
So for me, it was like, oh, like, how is this, how much did I compromise of my own integrity and my intuition in order to make things comfortable for other people?
Totally.
And that was a huge, and it sounds benign in some ways, but the growth and the dealing with the feelings that come with it, and not being liked and having to be different and having confrontation and feeling like, and then other icky things were said to me afterwards, like I got sick on purpose and, all this
Oh,
other
yes.
stuff. I'm just like,
Well,
no,
this
like,
brings up all the workplace
yeah.
bullying and expectations, right? Yeah, sorry.
So then I was like, okay, but how can so I got myself in this situation, and I'm a true believer, you create your own life. So I created this thing by choosing to say yes to it constantly. So I chose to not deal with stuff, and this is how it came out. So I'm like, okay, now it's reflecting back to me what was, in hindsight 2020, which is funny, we're in 2020. Hindsight is 2020. You go back, I was like, oh, here's some red flags of things that I could have said or did prior to that, a year and a half ago, or things that weren't aligning with who I really was that I could have pulled out, but because of XYZ, or I wanted to be more open, or I wanted to expand, or maybe it was my ego. Like I was listening to all the external things that I was being told other than listening to my truth. And
Right.
then at some point, there was such a divide that I had this breakdown. And then I had to
Typical
go,
trauma and illness comes up.
yeah. And all my other own karmic traumas and stuff came up. So that's been like it was so difficult when I was in it, and I'm out of it. But that's the one thing I think that was the gem in all of this. And I think that's, people don't talk about enough, is that the day to day going through and maybe losing friends or changing your job or changing your life is not
Not
easy.
easy.
And so many other traumas and feelings and things come up. And some days you just feel like, oh my God, like, why am I a mess? Like, I educate, I have all these things and I have all these certificates and all these degrees. Why am I a mess? Like, and it's in those
And aren't we
moments.
all? Aren't
Yeah.
we all?
And it's in those moments to keep going on this path, because I think it's so easy, or it felt like, oh, I'm just going to give up. But then I was like, I'm kind of stubborn that way too. I'm like, well, I've got myself this much into this mess. I kind of want to see how it turns out.
Well,
Some
nothing
days,
if not tenacious. Tenacity is, well, you need it to be a human. You
yeah.
need tenacity. And we all have our stories. We all have our experiences. We all have our traumas. And the grace is in how you manage that. I definitely haven't managed it well some days. And I still don't. And I know when I'm being an asshole. And I will apologize, right? Like immediately. I know the difference. I understand that. But and I guess, is it wrong of me to want that response right away as well, that kindness in turn? And yeah, wow, talking about, yeah, I don't even like to think about the work days and how that went down, and the level of unkindness that I show to others as well. I can remember very clearly once I was having a bad day. The doctor yelled at me about something or other, and yeah, and I hadn't had lunch, and so we had a sign up that says we will be back at 1 p.m. and I'm in my office, and this gentleman comes up and asks when the office will reopen, and I'm like, at 1 o'clock, just like the sign says. And he starts yelling, and he was yelling like, if you hate your job so much, then don't frickin' do it, and blah blah blah, right? And it was like, oh, and I got the intuitive hit that he was illiterate. He couldn't read the sign.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, I was a special kind of asshole that day. I and I was just like, oh, and he had a valid point. And it's just like, and yet in the world of healthcare, we don't really promote health or care or empathy. It's not a prerequisite for people. They seem to really honor and respect those that don't have empathy. They get to go up the ladder a whole lot faster than the rest of us that gave from the heart and cared about our patients, So, and a lot of ego going on. And I certainly had my own. In spades. And so it's interesting, do you even reflect on, I would never approach it that way now. But again, when you have, when I talk about pain, it's like the chicken or the egg, right? It's like, and I've had all of it. I've had the mental illness. I've had the pain, the physical illness, and in all systems, all of my systems have broken down at one shape or form in another. And it's like the chicken or the egg. Did the pain come first and then I lost my mind? Did I lose my mind and then the pain came? It's a delicate balance, right? And it's like, it's that whole thing. There's a very, the land of crazy and mental illness. It's like when I'm obnoxiously happy and people wanted to put me in a psych ward, it's like the line between bipolar mania and happy is a fine line, And it's about what level of selfishness. If, the signs are hypersexuality and overspending and no self-responsibility, no self-actualization. Your mind literally leaves your body. So, it's not a big deal to spend $10,000 at the Apple store. It's like, oh, maybe I didn't have that, right? And so it's a fine line, and yet all it takes is understanding and compassion and more love. It doesn't necessarily need or require 4-point restraints and medications like you're a walking zombie. So, and I think that was my awakening. That was my awakening. I literally saw and talked to God, and it made a lot of people really uncomfortable and really unhappy. And I had to go through all the cycles of healing, through all the systems, the medical and everything. I took all the classes, the depression classes, all the things, and nothing helped. The only thing that helped was my spiritual work. This spiritual work is what helped me. And now I'm obnoxiously happy. And I don't give a shit who that offends. And I am never going back to a psych ward. I'm off all my meds. I've lost the weight. I'm the healthiest and happiest I've ever been. So if that isn't, the banner sign of success, of the woo I talk about, and people have chastised me for using that term, for saying that that's not respectful. And it's like, well, no, that's what it is. It's like, that's what I call it, And it's so fascinating. It's all about perspective. And even that girlfriend, while I'm having that pain crisis, was upset because I called her babe. Because I use the term babe, and she's literally reading out of a dictionary how offensive that term is. And I'm like, isn't it about intention? It's about intention. I'm not like, hey, baby, how you doing? Right? I'm not doing that. I'm like, it's a term of affection. And I barely have the brain capacity to even have this conversation right now. So can we just, you'd be offended. And again, her triggers are not my responsibility. She wants me to change my language and all those things. And I'm like, I will try another day, but not right this moment when my pain's a 9 out of 10, right? And so we're all negotiating our own levels of trauma and healing, and the earth herself is healing, and there's trauma and hurricanes and volcanoes and everything. Like, we are all collectively healing really deep, really ancestral, really old shit. Like, I've cleared 102 years. You've cleared 100 and some as well, haven't you? And it's just like, that's, no biggie, no biggie. But that's the beauty of our work that has allowed me. I am pretty sure that if I did not sign up for this class, I would be highly medicated, walking zombie in a psych ward right now.
Well, I think I know if I didn't have pain, and I've talked to a lot of people, if there wasn't a major out of your hands, like when you realize you have no control over the world, you look for something more. And I think pretty much anyone I've ever talked to that have started a spiritual path, it usually was precipitated by some event that was heartbreaking, hard to do, where there was a lot of loss in some, or a lot of pain, however, physical, emotional, mental, whatever that is, in order to really connect you, to break that mind, the monkey mind, our ego mind's barrier to our soul. There's something that I don't think that anyone's had, like their healing crisis, their awakening crisis, but a lot of people have felt that their awakening is similar to losing your mind, as you talked to. So
Yeah.
it's the benefit of of that is that you were able to find a pathway that was more true to you, where it wasn't medication and it wasn't this certain way, but really to heal. But you talked about several times leading with love and compassion. And really, that starts with us. I think that if I don't have a lot of compassion for myself, then I'm not going to grow. Like once I switched my criticism to trying to fix the problems that I felt that I had or wanted to be different, and had compassion and full acceptance for myself, I was able to open up areas of my life where when I would feel really down or insecure or having a lot of self-doubt or going through whatever pain cycle I was in, that made it easier. And it also opened me up to be more compassionate with others. Like as a therapist, I was compassionate as a therapist and I was professional as a teacher in other aspects. It was clear I could do that. But with my own personal friendships and my husband, a lot of it relationships, that's where my wounds and needs, I would let them out. So that is where I needed to have more compassion for myself and really know that the other person has their own world going on. And even if my needs weren't getting met and I could give a really good, I got a download or I got like I knew or I could interpret why they were behaving this way, that didn't really make me compassionate and related to them. It was more so when I was truly like, oh, they're hurting or they're having this experience and it just is like this, because sometimes it's life. We're not all going to be on the same timing and we're not going to wait.
Right.
So how can I have compassion for myself and them and have a real conversation where the truth comes out? And I really kind of over and over the theme for my growth has been to expand what compassion means and love and for myself and receiving that, and in a very feminine archetypal way of receiving everything else and not just receiving about what I select that I want to receive and what I don't want to receive, but receiving all of it in order to do something, create something new with it. And receiving help, receiving love. And even if it's not how I think I need to receive the love, they're giving me love and not look for a
Qualifiers.
qualifiers or a conflict or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then I also think that the woo or whatever we call it is there, because the spiritual is what really healed me. And when
Same.
hearing, listening to it, healed you. And that could be, there's always been a lot of spiritual healing out there, but now it's named like theta healing, quantum healing. Like I heal this way through channeling, shamanic healing, Reiki healing. Those energies have always been there. People have channeling, empath, guides. It's herbal medicine. And I'm not talking,
Naturopathic. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not talking about pot or alcohol or anything like that. I'm talking actually like plants and herbs and stuff that where we have developed our more Western medicines based on these synthetic things that helped, and that has always been available through culture. We've always had witch doctors, shamans, whatever you want to call it, and and now we qualify it as certain things and break it down, and this so political as far as what you can and shouldn't call and if it's respect. And it really is your intention. Like if you say babe out of like love and that's a term of endearment, like that's just what you're used to. That doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be erased from the vocabulary, because
Right.
I just think that in this transition, everyone is so caught up in external. And I think that's part of the work that we do is helps that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, everything again comes back to energy.
Mm-hmm.
Energy. And when you say we're mismatched, it's because of the energy. The questions have a different energy than the answers. So if we just take care of our vibration, what if our only job is to be happy? What if our only job is to be happy? And what if I do everything I can to be happy? What if you do everything to be happy? What if that person does everything they can to be happy? Then we're all vibrating at a higher level, and the questions and the answers just come. I spiritually believe that that happens, that we're all connected in a way, that we are all one, that the answers are really there if we are vibrating high enough. And it is my job to take care of me and to have the boundaries and to be as happy, obnoxiously so, so that I have ease, happiness, abundance, joy to be. And so if you're down here, this is what I am struggling with now is I literally don't have a lot of time or patience for the unawoke. I cannot hold space or time for people that aren't trying to raise their vibration. If they want to stay down here, they want to stay miserable, they want to stay right, then let them be. They can be, but they don't need to be with me. I don't need to be with them because that doesn't make me happy. I can't be pulled down, and people, as you vibrate higher, a lot of people are starting to pull on the coat strings, right? On the coattails, and like just trying to dig themselves up. Like, I'm happy to help you heal because that's who I am. But that's a session. That's a session. I'll give you a healing session. We can talk about all the things and do that. But you don't get to rain on my parade. You don't get to tell me that I'm wrong, that I'm thinking or doing or being wrong when I'm living my best life. If that offends you, then that's on you. I mean, and
I think
that
that's true.
balance is hard.
And really, for everyone, like to find the place in you where you're unapologetically you is really the dharma of all of our lives, is to figure out who we really are and what we stand for, and that it's all okay. And then there
Okay.
is that, like all relationships, like yes, there is a level where you want to help everyone and you do. But if you want them in your personal life and you need certain needs or boundaries or how you want to be um, treated or in relationship with whoever and whatever, that's a whole different level. And you're right, you find people that mirror what your beliefs are as you so it's a growthful process. So it's not
Yes.
anyone is like everyone has to be like, that's not, we both know that's not right, realistic at this moment. It could be a reality that we're all at a different level. That's, I think, what's supposed to be the age of Aquarius and all this ascension and 3 to 4 to 5D whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
the reality as
Whatever.
a human is that you're always going to go back to this earthly body. You go up and down the chakras. It's not like you just go up and then you're there. There's
Right.
always a realignment, a up leveling, how are you in this world and how are you of a higher world. And that is always that rub and that pearl, that sand that turns into a pearl. And no matter what level you get to, you're human. So you're
And
always going to,
hence, you
yeah,
have to stay grounded
grounded.
in that humanity, and hence why, oh damn, what's the physics that keeps us grounded, literally on the ground?
Gravity.
Yeah, gravity, the power of gravity, right? We're all on ground, on Mother Gaia all the time. And the dynamics of that is not a mistake.
Because it's the love of the human form, and we get to be these cool beings that have consciousness, and we get to tap in and awaken that consciousness. And that always, whatever level you're ascending to, there usually is some grains in there that need to be like rubbed over to turn into a pearl to move on. So there's not just one level of enlightenment there. Once you're there, then there's a stratosphere of even more. It's this vertical knowing and constantly going higher and coming back down and bringing the lower higher and the higher lower. So it's infusing and finding your people as you go up through that process.
Absolutely.
Is part of finding your boundaries and having the fulfillment and joy. And then whatever your gifts are, like giving sessions, to give your sessions to whomever and to have love for whomever, but to have your personal relationships to reflect differently, I think is also part of the growthful process in spiritual work. And I think that's also something that's scary that people talk about in general, but you know, it is much more, I don't know, intimidating to maybe not have your same friends or family, to not be accepted
Change
by
is hard.
people that you love.
Change is hard. And
Yeah.
transformation is hard. Up leveling is hard. It requires a lot of work of you, right? And so it starts with that personal responsibility, and we all have choice. And you know, to get that freedom, and to, it starts with the forgiveness, it starts with the boundaries, it starts with choosing for you. You don't get to choose for other people. And I think that's where the confusion comes. People seem to think they have the right to choose for other people. And
Easier though, don't you think it's always easier to see someone? Well, we all have a blind spot. I mean, that's why seeing therapists or seeing spiritual workers or psychics or healers or having a mentor, a teacher, because we all have, there's like that class, it's a classic psychology thing, like what you see, what you notice, what other people see, and then what you don't see, but what others do. And that's the blind spot that we need to have community with. But, and that I think because we're on this plane relational, is that we want relations. They're like, we're on this plane to relate. We're not on this plane to be by ourselves.
We
as much
are
as
not.
being by ourselves is cool, less strife.
This unity consciousness versus the separation consciousness, right? This whole, I think this often, every day, on any given day, this major, beautiful bridge from downtown to Kitsilano, Burrard Street Bridge, any minute, any given day, hundreds of people are walking their dogs or biking all by themselves. And we have heralded this ideology of independence, this North American ideology of independence, this I need nobody. You know, COVID has caused this mass exodus. Everybody, there are 150,000 dogs in downtown Vancouver, and there is none left in any shelters anymore right now with COVID, because everybody needed a dog, because nobody all of a sudden didn't want to be alone, trapped in their apartment. You know, and I feel bad for people that don't enjoy their own company. There's something kind of wrong with that. You know, I understand the love of a pet for sure. My allergies have never allowed me to have one, but I still, you know, yeah, that's a whole other topic, but but what I'm saying is that viewpoint, that independence, and the reality is that COVID has brought our unity consciousness to the forefront, and that we really need to work on being respectful, mindful, and a team player in community and in relationship with others. We are not meant to be an island of one. We are meant to be here to relate, to have our human experience. And if this isn't the divine lesson speaking right through us to Mother Gaia, to all of us here having this human experience, I don't know what is. And I say Dawnism, you can't make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up. The level of strife and the separation consciousness, the I'm right, you're wrong, the conflict, how we are all experiencing conflict on a new level. The inner conflict, the outer conflict, the relationship conflicts are bigger and juicier and uglier and prettier all at the same time right now.
Yes, and it's recognizing those conflicts as an opportunity to do something with it. How do you resolve your own conflict? How do you make up your own conflict? How do you make, like, what are the beliefs on one way or another to cause internal conflict? Not good enough, or I want to do this, but I can't do it, like, or should have that, there's many ways to do internal. And then when you are in relationship with other, how to manage conflict. So conflict resolution, I think, is a gift in that you talked about the raising of the vibration, like how do you do it? And that's like the meaty part, and that's the part that no one really, that it's, if you're into yoga, there's yamas and yamas, there's, whatever Buddhism, like definitely there's tenets, there's the Bible, there's the Bhagavad Gita, there's all these things, but how you actually apply those teachings in the moment with a conflict with yourself and with other is the work, and that's the challenge. I mean, I felt like, how do I take this? We are all one and we have the same essence, but we're completely divided. In this world, there's a division. There's a black and white, there's male, female. It's that's duality. This world's duality. And how do you take that duality of it should be this way or it should be this way and resolve it so you can. I always felt like I had this beautiful teacher, Michael, and one of the things that he really talked about in his teachings, among others, is being comfortable with contradictions. I like to have answers. I was very good at school, and I like to get the right answer. So to have two things that seem in complete opposition live together and to be true was like, oh, my insights kind of like, no, it doesn't compute. I can't do that. But I was like, oh, well, since I'm so like about it, that's where I need to put some attention, a focus and energy to expand that within me, so then I can bring to life the world, because the world is full of contradictions. There is no right way. We started with perspective and boundaries, and we're kind of wrapping it up. There is no right way, but there is a way that is more beneficial for others.
For all.
Yes, for all, including ourselves. And it may not be looking like what we based the last several thousand years upon.
It does not. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
So
and aren't we all seeking peace? The end goal is peace here on earth. It's that simple. It's peace. It's minus the illness, minus the strife, minus the wars, minus hunger, minus conflict, minus, it's so leading with love isn't such a bad idea, is it? And what if it really is that simple?
I think it is, but through anything that's simple, there's a lot of work with it.
Yes.
The simpler the truth, I think there's some saying about the simple of the truth, but the most simple truth is we are love. Okay. You know how complex and like a whole bag of like stuff that comes with, like, first, believe it, not believe it, blah, blah, blah. What is love? It's not defined. You can't like measure it. It's not seen, blah, blah, blah. Then love others and love yourself. And what is that? You know what I mean? Maybe you can
Yes.
label it and put all sorts, but we are divine beings filled with love. And that's probably one of the hardest things that as humans we actualize because of traumas, hurts, past traumas, past whatever. That's a whole other topic, but
But most of that comes up from not being well loved.
all of it, not being
All
seen,
of it.
validated, heard, insecure, whatever,
And
traumatized,
even
abused.
the disease that is secondary to that is like from a lack of love, right?
Mhm.
So some of it's self-inflicted, which we don't respect at all. And yet, shouldn't we? I mean, how is that? And if you walked a mile in those shoes, what would your trauma response be? You know, it's just fascinating. Yeah.
Exactly. So the simplest things are probably the most complex to actually do. So that I think is, so we'll start to end. We've been over an hour, but um and maybe we'll do it on the next one next week, but really talk about the next evolution of support in the spiritual realm, because that is where, yes, you get
Hmm.
nourishment on you. Sometimes you need like medication and drugs and whatever, like you just do. But the nurturing of our souls as humans and our actual physical bodies come from the unseen. It comes from the energy of the earth. It comes from love, which is not seen. It comes from energy work that is unseen. Most people get a lot more benefit by connecting with something that is not seen. And as Westerners, and especially, you know, in my culture, I think Canada's similar, if you can't see it, it's not true.
Right.
And if you can't ingest this, if I can't make it in a laboratory to fix you, then it's not true. Like I have to
Well, you
research it. I
have
have
to
to
have
get
the
clinical
proof.
trial. Yes,
Yes.
clinical trials. I have to have a
Blind
theory,
trials and yeah, the
and
whole
I
thing.
have to do reports. Even though, as both of us know that have been schooling in medicine, that you do a theory and the hypothesis is made up. Something that's very creative, and depending on how your perspective and how you interpret the results, you can
Yeah.
skew the results however you want to. So
Sure you can.
there's
Any way you want to. And
so
then we
there's
make that fact. We make that scientific fact. And that word scientific is like the herald is so heralded. And it's like, well, yeah. See,
yeah,
that's another tangent.
that's a whole other topic. But I think that is where I think we're on the precipice of the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. And we're fortunate in that our past medicines and everything, our own personal work, has brought us to a place where not only have we seen great results with theta healing and Reiki and all of the energy bodies that are unseen, all the works combined. That is really where it's going, is in more energetic. So it's kind of a full circle. I see
Yes.
it as like all these ancient medicines, how do you make them modernized and in a different level? Because it's not the same. It's not like we're still in smaller communities and we don't have all this technology. How do we use energy work to then do what all of the ancients have foretold is this age of Aquarian, this up leveling, this upcycling? There's this transition to a new human existence. You either grow and change, or you get the fire, or you grow and change and you got the flood, or whatever all those historical things are based upon. Is now, okay, what are we going to do? How is the new healing going to happen? And I have seen all different levels of trauma healing, from just verbal therapy to somatic therapies, to EMDR, to brain spotting, blah, 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 blah. But overall, of my colleagues and also the work, the energy work that we're doing, where it is on a cellular level with looking at trauma in the body and releasing that, is highly effective and subtle, but that is where the future is going. So
That is the future. Because we don't even know what our bodies are actually capable of.
and 95% of it is running us. It's unconscious. And
Yeah.
if we're able to, because we're not putting anything in, we're not adding it or making it on top of it. It's the body is telling us what it needs to heal. And when we listen, respond, and engage in sessions where that happens, then it's just more and more your body's more ignited to heal on its own. It's just this
Yes.
upward cycle.
And it's not, and again, it's not just one way. It's not just North American medicine. It's not Western medicine. It's not just the woo. It's all the things.
Combined to up level.
And to live your best life.
So we talked
obnoxiously happy.
Yeah. So we talked about a lot of things. Hopefully talked more to give perspective on the real struggle of the work and all perspectives of like, once you're in it, what are the triggers and how daunting they can be, and then or the pain or the whatever the breaks that happen, and then being in it for a while is super uncomfortable, but that really is where the beauty happens, is sticking in that discomfort and finding ways that nourish your soul to help that support your physical body. And that helps you kind of move, grow, and really tap into that joy and that peace that you were talking about. And that it's never ending, which is beautiful. I used to not think it was beautiful because it was never ending. I'm like, when am I going to have a minute?
Yeah, that was annoying to me too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, forever.
Are you kidding me? Can
There's
I be
more.
done?
Isn't there a space in the Eden or Nirvana or something I told about where you're just like chilling? No.
Yes. No.
Not until we're
Well,
done.
there might be on the other side of the veil. But that's another
When we're
conversation
dead.
as well. Yeah.
While we're alive, it's get to a higher place, go down and raise yourself up.
Yeah.
Then go down and raise up. So that you go down, you don't go down as far, but you can just keep on going higher, like the Himalayas.
Yeah. Like the Himalayas.
So there's always peaks and valleys. So thank you, everyone. If you have comments, questions, you anything at all, if you like all of our insights and banter, go ahead and like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and I think we're going to start just doing live every week because it's kind of fun. Who knows what we'll say?
Fun.
Yeah. And I have a lot of videos to upload, so if you want to binge, we're going to be Monday they'll all be out.
Hopefully, but if not, whatever. Yeah.
That's my goal for the weekend. My fall
goal. I like that. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Love you all.
Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.